All right. So have you ever, tried to get in shape, lose weight, and quickly started to get overwhelmed because of the amount of information that there was online? Maybe people get paralysis analysis, just kind of get overwhelmed and maybe even frustrated because they're putting in the work, they're disciplined, they're working hard, but they're not getting the results that they want. That's what we're going to talk about here today. Seth and Nate. And today we're going to mostly uncover the secret, in our opinion, in really what drives results, what's mostly a distraction that you should avoid, and really we're going to uncover how to simplify success for long-term success.
Just first, which one of us is Seth and which one's Nate?
I'm Seth.
Oh, well, I guess that means I'm Nate. Okay, cool. So your first proposition is that people are trying super hard and they're not making it. And I think that happens sometimes, but I would think it's probably true that the first difficult step is learning that they're trying hard isn't really trying hard yet. That they haven't learned to be comfortable being uncomfortable, or the movement patterns and stuff, but I think you're jumping past that phase. You're probably talking about somebody that's been working out for 6 months, they saw an initial stack of results and then it slowed down. At least that's what I would be thinking.
People could be at different stages of the journey, so we want to figure out what the missing link is for them. I call it maximum results in minimum time. And it's really the secret to health, fitness, and longevity, primarily because, in today's modern world, we're busy. Everyone's busy. We don't have a lot of time. And, we might be talking about, us, executives, business owners, professionals, top sales reps, people with kids, just high achievers in all areas of their life that for whatever reason don't have the time to commit. Like, maybe your broke gym junkie could just spend hours in the gym working out to get results. But what about how do people that have limited time get outstanding results and push past those boundaries that you maybe, mentioned?
I think the first thing is overcoming the misconception that you have to spend 6, 7, 8 hours a week in the gym. I think the average person could probably get away with 2 or 3, and if the other factors that they should have been focusing on first for general health were present, they'd probably still get excellent results. In fact, there are several influencer, bodybuilder type people with very, very well-founded kinesiological approaches to their exercise and nutritional, nothing super wacky. They work out 2 days a week and they get great results. People, well, maybe they're on stuff. No, that's the whole point. They're not. They're not super huge competitive bodybuilders, but for the average person, that the bodybuilding ideal of a competitive bodybuilder is not only out of reach, it's undesirable. That's not what they're going for. They don't want to look like someone drew them to be in a Marvel comic book. They'd much rather look something like Hugh Jackman in the Wolverine movie, which is a fully achievable physique. Granted, very, 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 very hard work, but it's a very fully achievable physique.
Brad Pitt in Fight Club. Wonder Woman.
I wouldn't use Wonder Woman, but yeah, sure. The Fight Club example is great. Although I don't know for sure. I bet that Brad Pitt probably weighed like 165 in that movie. So he was.
I think he was better in Hercules.
Oh, you mean Troy?
Troy.
Troy, yes. Yeah. Well, see, but this is the guys versus the girls kind of take on things. We always like it when things are a little bigger, more muscular, and they want it more approachable. But that's different topic, different day, different thing. So going back to the basis, like wherever that person's at in their gym and they're getting stuck. You said the maximum result in the minimum time. I think you mean minimum time investment. I don't think like in the shortest time possible, because that like the quick fix is probably one of the first mistakes. I want results right away. Okay, well, but what results do you want right away? Well, I want to instantaneously look like the picture that I saw in Sears catalog. Well, nobody buys Sears catalog anymore. That's silly, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's, well, delusional. But there are factors that play into these things that people don't take care of. And when you and I were pre-discussing this a little bit, my first thought was, well, like the 10% factors, the 20% factors. And I started thinking that percentages might make people start thinking that one's more important than the other, but then prioritizing based off of mathematical projection. And that just starts feeling goofy. I think I kind of thought about it. That's the 5 things I came up with that people got to fix first.
And I think we'll classify that as like just in this to avoid overwhelm. All of it's important. I think we're agreeing, But it's like, what's the most important they should focus on at least first in a matter of priorities,
essentials
right?
versus optionals.
And you're kind of like essentials, fundamentals.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to call it the 20% that yields 80% of the results, Pareto's principle, or maximum results at minimum time. So let's get into exactly what that most important, that yields the highest level of results, basically the highest yielding result activities that people should be focusing on, the fundamentals. Let's get into what are those in your opinion?
Well, the first one's kind of an anti-activity. I think that most people don't get good sleep. I think that's certainly something that even I struggle with, and not because I don't go to bed and don't do all the things. I just have difficulty sleeping for a longer period of time than a few hours. I will wake up, and it does not I can fall asleep on a dime. That's easy. It's just staying asleep, working on getting that pattern down. So adequate rest, whether that be time between workouts, recovery, or just general sleep, that is a big one I think that most people miss out on entirely.
So you're saying that maybe they could be overtraining, overstimulating, whatever, and then not recovering enough, and that's slowing down their progress.
Overtraining is pretty difficult for a beginner. I mean, because their body can react to this, all depending on age and some different factors. I do think overtraining is a lot harder to do than most people think it is, but not enough recovery. So, because if we make the focus, they're training too much, then they pull back on the thing that's actually helping them fuel their initial momentum, right?
So it's not, and that's what I've been told too in my experience over the years, is you can't overtrain.
It's hard.
Only recover.
And then it becomes, which again, it starts turning into semantics. Like, well, isn't that the same thing? Kinda, but I mean, in reality, if you're working out 4 or 5 times a week for about an hour, that is more than enough to achieve results, and it's not even, it was 172 hours, I believe. There's 168 or 172 hours in a week. I probably should have just remembered that. I feel silly now. But that many, and then you say 5, and you realize, well, shoot, that's not even 5% of my day or my life. It's nothing. So it's
training is the easy part.
The training
it takes the least amount of time.
Right.
It's only 3 hours a week, maybe more, but
especially as a beginner, where you can make your progress very continuously as long as you're really trying, barring physiological problems, injuries, things like that. But
so we moved on from sleep to fitness. So what's the minimum effective dose on sleep?
Oh man, people, wouldn't you say? Everyone seems to agree the 8-hour mark, but I would say whatever is more than you're doing. So if you're having trouble sleeping longer than 4 or 5 hours, then 6 hours is great for you. Don't worry about not getting 8 right away. If you can improve your sleep by an hour, and then in another month by another hour, well, gee, then you're at 7, and then in another month you're at 8. If you continue progressing with your habits and not stressing out that you're not instantaneously at the goal, 8 hours for a person who can only sleep 4 hours seems insurmountable. The same way that drinking a gallon of water when you have trouble drinking 3 glasses a day is insurmountable. But if you're like, well, I can only drink 3 glasses of water a day, drink a 4th one.
So yeah,
the baby steps.
Just improving wherever you're at in all areas. And then, a REM cycle is every, I think, 90 minutes or so. So I calculated, I think 7.5 is the complete of a REM cycle if you're kind of sleeping consistently.
And depending on how long it takes a person to fall asleep.
So 8 hours, would be, in my opinion, would be like a good goal, just to give yourself that would be like the abundance. You have plenty of time to get that, and you're able to.
It's a good baseline to say, we're not sure it's exactly that, but if you're doing that, you're probably on the right track.
Yeah, you probably don't need more.
Right. But if you're struggling to get that, don't beat yourself up for getting better rest than you did before and working your way into it.
What about fitness? So the biggest thing with fitness is, as we're aging, we're having muscle loss, unless
you're stimulating
it and achieving the right balance of recovery, protein, and working out. So what's the minimum effective dose, or how can we get the maximum results in minimum time in our fitness?
Well, I want to flip that on you for a second. What do you think it is?
So, in my opinion, if the goal is to, reverse aging, or at least prevent it, and we're losing muscle as we age, how do we prevent muscle loss? Well, we have to train all the muscles in the body at least once a week, and in my opinion, ideally twice a week. So at the minimum once a week, about 3 days a week.
So there's no disagreement there. I was going to answer it in kind of the amount you are willing to do at the beginning. So
anything's better than nothing.
Right.
So for sure.
So if a person
people
says,
have this all or nothing mindset, like
Right.
Whatever you can do. If you're doing 0, do 1 day a week, and you're going to get better results than nothing.
Exactly. But I agree with you. Optimally, twice a week is hey, if you're hitting it like that, that's a good place to start. I think the major difficulty with people who can work out only 2 days a week, they're able to work at an intensity that is flat out higher than what most people in their first couple of years of training.
You're saying that some people can get results in only 2 days a week.
I think everybody can get results in 2 days a week. I think the really astounding,
mentally.
not just mentally, physically, but I think that the really astounding physical reactions are going to occur with people that have built up a mental toughness and a physical resilience to where they can perform, they in 45 minutes to an hour, they can hit that workout so hard that they're trashed for a couple of days. And, I can hear the bodybuilders in the back, well, I do 20 sets. Well, and I watch their videos, and it's hard, some of them are intense and some of them are not, and some different things and genetic potentials. Before we start going the genetic route or talking steroids, I'm just saying, I think that almost everyone can agree that their capacity to work at a high intensity increases the longer and the better they get.
The more, and especially doing it safely.
Yes,
because in the beginning, sometimes people can train, but they don't, because their technique isn't, they're not ready to train that intensity. And they're going to get injured if they even try.
There's a few exercises that come to mind. We were talking about deadlifts, or I think really underrated lat pull downs, people trying to get pull-ups down when they haven't built up any of the necessary traction and scapular retraction. But we don't want to get too specific. So we had sleep. And now we're talking about getting the workouts in.
2 to 3 days a week is kind of like the minimum effective dose for training.
But we were talking about which ones are most effective, and I feel like we jumped from sleep, which I think is the one that is the most efficacious at the beginning. Like it's the one that
let's lump all of these into in that fundamental category.
Okay.
These are all pretty much things.
So we're not order prioritizing.
You can't ignore it, because you can't just ignore sleep or.
I just think that sleep is the one that if the other 4 that I would list are all on point and your sleep's not, it's going to really hurt your outcomes.
Should you not work out if you're not getting good sleep then?
I don't agree with that either, but that's a different point. I'm simply saying I think the critical value of the one. I don't know if it overshadows the other so much as its capacity to enhance it is so big that not taking it into consideration would be a big mistake.
Mindset?
Oof, but this is the meme, of course, is that every personal trainer is also a psychologist. But the reality is that as much as I've read a lot of books about it, neither one of us has a degree in psychology or psychiatry. And while we can be empathetic and understanding, I think it's really dangerous for us to jump into that field because you'll get people who have dysmorphia or other eating disorders and things like that, which we are clearly not qualified to help with, even though we'd really like to, because I can't, almost every person I respect in this industry, and working with you and over the last few years, one thing that we share is a deep joy and passion for seeing the people around us do well. Like, we love seeing them succeed. It's not just an intense point of pride, it's actual happiness that we got to be part of somebody's journey as they improve. But the mindset thing, all we can really do is create positive affirmations, give them what we believe is the right information to push forward, and really be supportive. But that can bite you too. We had somebody this morning like, I'm feeling too sore to come in. And like, well, you can come in and do stretches. No, I'm not coming in. The little monster comes out, and you're like, well, okay, we're not going to. There's no point addressing that further. Okay, great. Well, I'll see you the next time you come in. But
I think with clients and just in general our fitness philosophy, the mindset is things that almost could be applied in other areas in order to just achieve success in any area of your life, such as that, like we talked about earlier, the all or nothing mentality.
Right.
So if they're going from all or nothing, that's a mindset that people are like, all right, if I'm not working out 7 days a week, twice a day, I'm just going to do nothing. And and once they miss a day, they feel like they're a failure. When really it's just about incremental,
So is that does that for you fall necessarily into a psychological point, or is it maybe just setting good fundamental goals? Because if we took it away from fitness for a second and said we have to program a video game or an app or something, you'd set up a timetable with the different things that have to occur in which amount of time, and you'd have a timetable for it, and you'd have everybody going what their job is, what they've got to do, the things you have to complete. It would be really straightforward. And because there's no emotional attachment to the order of operation, for most people probably, right? I mean, I'm sure there's some engineers out there going, well, I care which order they do. But I think most of the time it's, if I know the things to do and I know that there will be an outcome at the end, then great. The difficulty with fitness, I think, compared to like an engineering undertaking like that, is that we know it will improve, but we don't know exactly how much or in what way, because you don't know how the person's going to respond. Like their weight may stay the same, but their waist still gets smaller, so they might recomp on those calories differently than another person. It helps when you have body scans and things to calculate basal metabolic rate. And
to your point, you're laying out a structured plan how to achieve a goal, and you're tracking the metrics along the way, so you know if it's
100%.
achieved or not. Which is actually one of the things I wrote down as a critical component is tracking, and having those metrics. So tracking your weight, tracking your blood pressure, tracking your 3D body scans, all your measurements. Maybe tracking your weights in the gym too.
I think you have to do that too, because otherwise you don't know whether you're actually pushing it.
Because if you rely on just subjective measures like, I don't feel good today, I don't feel like I'm making progress, well, that's not actually a smart way to approach it.
Especially because how many times have you come into the gym and you did not feel good, but then you went in and worked out and you're like, I'm mad that I don't feel good, and you pushed a little hard in the workout, and all of a sudden at the end of the workout you worked out great and you feel way better than when you walked in the door. That happens too. So using that, I don't feel good so I shouldn't work out, is not necessarily by itself indicative of a plan of action.
On my list I wrote water and hydration.
Oh, huge.
Seems simple, but yet it has a high impact.
Well, we talked about it just a second ago. If you're struggling to drink 4 glasses of water a day, then work on drinking 4 and then maybe go up to 5. Don't worry about whether, and when I say glass of water, I'm generally talking about 8 ounces, but before we go into the whole ounces of water per thing, I think the point is that most people could probably stand to drink a little bit more water and hydrate better. And so rather than saying I'm going to jump straight to my goal, I'm going to make sure I'm doing more than I'm doing now. And then, like you said, tracking it so I have a verifiable metric I can use to see how I'm progressing. Yeah, hydration absolutely comes near the top of the list.
Now, one of the biggest things that I actually think that matters the most, in especially our health and fitness, is that the plan, everything all included that we're going to be talking about right now, this 20% of what yields the highest amount of results in minimum time, needs to be customized versus generic. And that's, I think, a mistake that people make, as well as something that they miss out on, is that you could be doing the right things on paper, but because you're not getting a personalized plan to what your body needs, what you need right at this moment in time, you're not going to get good results, / you might not get results, you might get injured, you might get frustrated, or you might even get overwhelmed. And it's simply just because it wasn't customized to what you need at this moment.
But I think the crazy thing is the real value, the greatest value in my opinion of what a personal trainer offers is intelligent and compassionate but strict accountability. People say, they do it on their own, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the whole point of the accountability factor is to have someone going, well, here's, like, if we say 5 things, because we're just for the sake of simplicity, here's the 5 things. Well, you keep getting these 4, but you're leaving this one out, and I'm going to be your accountability meter that makes sure you get that on track. And that, if you want to call that customization because everybody's one of those 5 points is a little bit different, that's great. Or if because a person has really no problem working out their legs but struggles working out upper body, so we focus more on their upper body to help them build a connection to that, and you call that customization, I'm fine with that. That's absolutely
the science
as well.
is always the same, but everyone's got a little bit of different nuances, like you said, where they might skip lower body, maybe they're not getting enough sleep. There's always a components that they're missing just this one thing, and that's really all they need to fix.
Right.
We've been talking about the 20% that yields the maximum results in minimum time. Let's just go over the list real quick.
Right. So we had sleep. Then you said your activity, your fitness, workouts.
Mindset.
You said mindset, hydration.
Hydration, yep.
And then we went to nutrition.
Accountability.
That would be a 6th point, but sure, accountability.
So we got a few extra, and those are all pretty important things.
Oh, agreed.
So now let's talk about maybe what are the other activities that are not the most important ones. They don't get as much a result, they might even be more of a distraction for most people, and at least less of a priority than the kind of the key things that people should be focusing on. So I wrote down fancy gadgets, like workout equipment, like Pelotons at home. They're like, oh, they get to see a commercial, they buy it, they get excited about it.
What do you think of like the health watches, the iWatches, things like that?
Same thing. I wrote that down. Like these little gadgets to track everything and over-track. Like we talked about tracking being important a second ago, and that's what on my list, what I wrote down. But people get into tracking things that actually don't matter or aren't even accurate tracking metrics to begin with.
Well, the heart rate monitor, of calories burned in a workout kind of thing. Yeah, 100%. I think if it's used like the iWatch is the only example that comes to mind for me immediately, because things like the Peloton and stuff like that are so far outside my paradigm. But like the iWatch, if you're just using it to track your MyFitness or the app that we I got my macros covered. I know that my food's on point. I can see what my resting heart rate was when I slept. That stuff can be. If you're just using it as I'm paying attention to how my body's reacting to things, then that's great. If you're using it as a profit for the desired outcome, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Exactly, and that's why, again, I think this list we're going to go over we're not against any of these things.
No, not
None
at
of
all.
these things are bad. It's just things that are, for most people, probably more of a distraction than a benefit. There is some use to it. There's always going to be some benefits to these things, but again, they're not for most of what their results actually are. They're not focusing on the right things.
Right.
They're being distracted for the most part. If they're trying to lose weight, but they're trying to track their heart rate or their calories burned.
What was my max heart rate at workout? That seems to me like a very specific goal for somebody who's intentionally trying to get their maximum heart rate.
If that's their goal, then that's what should be tracking.
Then it's going to be tracking. But if your goal is just to be generally more fit and change your body composition,
lose fat, build muscle, be healthy,
probably doesn't make enough of a difference compared to the other things you could be tracking.
Yeah, especially if your goal is fat loss, let's say.
Yeah.
The body metrics, 3D body scan would be better.
Well,
also, over complicated programs. Like you mentioned a second ago, the basics, the foundation is arguably the most important thing. And people get into these really complicated programs, whether it's nutrition plans, like meal plans with thousands of supplements, or really complicated diets, or complicated workouts. It could be any of those factors. And really, they should just be doing the fundamentals and mastering them and actually being good at those things.
I would even argue that macro-based meal plans are not as important as adequate calorie meal plans for people at the start. Like if they're I'm freaking out because I didn't get 158 grams of protein, but you got 125 and your calories were in the right spot, you're doing fine. Chill out.
And that goes back to what you said earlier, is that we're looking for just improvement instead of perfection.
Right. Well, because one thing, almost any person who's been lifting for any number of years, and in particular people who are very physique focused, you never achieve perfection. You're not actually competing with anybody else. It's me versus me. How is my physique? How does my mentality? How does my physicality? How does my health stack up today versus a year ago?
100%.
Yeah.
And moving on, again, this list that we're not against, and there's some benefits to it in the right scenario, but things like over-testing, like getting your DNA, doing extensive blood tests, vitamin blood panels. Now, again, we're not talking about medical issues. We're talking about people that are not losing fat or building muscle fast enough, and they're wondering why. And then they start going to these extreme testing measures.
Anybody that wants to do metabolic testing or hormone testing before they've got their food, their sleep, and their water under control, so many of those things change once you have those three things under control.
The way I explain it is the lifestyle affects the blood work.
100%.
So if you're not doing the things that we already know are optimal, fitness, nutrition, sleep, mindset, why bother getting your DNA tested?
Well, and people are really quick to want to jump on TRT right when they start a new exercise. Guys will jump on TRT early, and I'm not opposed to testosterone replacement therapy at all. I am opposed to using it as your springboard. You should try to see, how does my body react to my environment. And of course, I'm not a medical professional doing hormone therapy prescriptions. So
we've seen it with thousands of our
yeah,
clients.
right.
We've had these same conversations with client after client after client.
Like one of the worst things is if you start somebody out, if you take a guy who's like say 50 years old, he started out on TRT at the beginning of his workout program, before he's got his diet and stuff under track, he'll get that little boost from the testosterone and think, oh, I don't need to focus as much on the other stuff. But then it will stop working because you stop fueling the process. So like as much as TRT can be life-changing for somebody, if they haven't got their diet, if they haven't got the nutrition, if they haven't got diet, nutrition, if they haven't got the nutrition, their hydration, and their sleep under control, all the workouts in the world are only going to have a limited effect or not the optimal effect they're looking for.
And that's one misconception I think people have is that they're going to get their hormones tested. If we're talking about TRT, I see it in men and women taking it.
Well, the perimenopausal test's big, yeah.
You know, that it's going to fix all their problems getting on TRT. So I get people that take it and they've been taking TRT for years, and they're wondering how come they're not losing body fat and why they're still losing muscle. Well, it's because they're not sleeping right, they don't have the right nutrition, and they're not working out.
Yeah.
And then we get them on a program. They're still taking TRT. They were taking it before and after, and now they're getting results simply because now they have all the pieces in place.
The foundation sits better. Yeah.
What's the biggest mistake people or beginners make in their health journey that they should avoid?
I know what mine was. And that was taking every single element too seriously instead of looking at it holistically. So when I got into weightlifting in my 20s, post having been an athlete through, high school, college years, that kind of thing, but getting back into weightlifting and trying to pursue that point, I was lifting weights 6 days a week, doing cardio for an hour, 6 days a week, sometimes doing cardio for 2 hours a day, 4 or 5, 6 days a week. And then instead of actually counting how many grams of protein I was eating, I just ate as much meat as I possibly could of any source. I was living in Germany, so they have this thing called Quark, which is basically like non-fat Greek yogurt, but it tastes a little bit better. And it's just essentially pure protein, so I was eating that by the cartload. And I got decent results, but I guarantee you, and I don't fault my trainer for this completely because it wasn't really how they did things back then, but if there had been a BMR calculation where we go, okay, so your basal metabolic rate to keep you the same weight you are right now would be, let's say at that age, it would have been 28, because I only weighed 145 pounds when I started lifting. So let's say that would have been 2,800 calories at the activity level that I had, would have been my BMR possibly, maybe even closer to 2,500. And that means to gain weight, all I would have needed to do consistently is eat about 250, 300 more calories a day, and I would have been able to probably steadily, consistently gain a little bit of weight without putting on too much body fat. But instead, I was like, more is better and eat more. So taking every little detail and instead of just doing a little bit better, trying to jump straight up to pro level or whatever you would call that, or like super high intensity, just overdoing it.
So you're saying the mistake they made is you just overdid
overdoing and overthinking
in general.
Overdoing and overthinking.
Yeah. I would agree. I think that what I see from our clients, people we work with, is the biggest mistake they make is focusing on the details before they matter yet. So like you said, a little bit different than even overdoing it, almost not starting it or giving up too soon because they're worried and stressed about details that don't matter if they're not even working out. They're not even tracking their calories. Like they have no clue about anything, and they're stressing out about something that's way in the future, or just doing the fundamentals will get them results.
Right.
And then they can worry about getting it dialed in. But if you're not working out at all, you're not getting enough sleep, you have no clue what you're eating, you don't need to stress out about anything. You just need to actually make progress to get started.
The other thing is actually just following the plan. How many times have we had a client where we go, well, what are you doing for your carbs? Oh, I'm trying to avoid the carbs. Why are you avoiding carbs? Well, we said we had to reduce carbs. Well, technically what I said was you had to eat 140 grams of carbs a day. You got in 30.
They overdid it.
They overdid it.
In the little direction.
Right. They overcompensated. Yeah. And like, no, carbs not bad. That's the funniest line from that Fall Guy movie. Dude, your brain needs carbs.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, You know, I think for periods of time, a relatively healthy person can try out very extreme diets like the carnivore diet and stuff, and they'll be okay. But I mean, I think those are, what I was going to say is that before we went into the joke of overdoing things, is when you get too ideologically captured or dogmatic, meaning, oh, low carb was great for me in this phase, so I'm going to go low carb for the rest of my life. No, if you want to improve, you have to get your carbs up, or you're not ever going to get. You need fuel for your workouts.
That sort of goes back to the holistic approach and why it all works together like a puzzle piece, because in different stages and different goals and different bodies, you need more or less of all these variables. So people try to oversimplify things like, oh, I don't need any carbs, or oh, I don't need any fats.
Right.
We need all of everything in the right balance.
And it's funny because we were just, well, you and I would say we have to keep it simple, but they don't, well, this is another thing. How great it would be if, when we actually spend the time to educate our clients, if they would remember it after you said it for the 50th time. Like, you don't expect them to remember it the first time you say it, but boy, it would be really nice after the 50th time. But you also can't fault them. It's our paradigm. It's our thing. We're passionate about it.
That's why we're having this conversation, Nate, so we can clear the air, and because they're listening to other, they're scrolling on social media, seeing random things that are confusing them. So we need to give them the correct information. So what are the things that they are doing that they should stop doing right now?
So the thing that they're doing that they shouldn't be doing is kind of what we just talked about. Don't overthink it. Trust. Well, how about this? Choose a trainer that you really believe they have, one, your best interests in mind, and they're competent enough to lead you. And then when they lead you, follow. Don't try. It's the same thing if you wanted to be playing on a soccer team or a football team or a baseball team. You listen to your coach. You trust your coach. If you don't trust your coach, you get off the team. So don't second guess them. Follow the path, stay the course. And here, I got one for you. Patience. Do not be impatient. Learn the value of understanding that fitness is chess and not checkers.
I think that's a good one.
Patience. There we go.
And I was thinking, what people should stop doing right now is they should stop letting stress win. Because what happens is they think they experience stress, and they let that be their motivating factor, like, oh, I'm feeling stressed, I can't go to the gym, or something big happened, I can't go to the gym.
You mean stress in terms of negativity?
Negativity.
Okay.
Or mental negativity.
Because you know how my literal brain works. You said stress, and I'm like, I'm stressed every time I work out. But that's not what you meant. That's stress.
Well, in all stress, I even argue mental stress builds you, makes you stronger.
Pick your stress. Choose your stress.
Well, if they have work stress or something, that's going to come at them no matter what.
Right.
But no matter what, you can either be stressed and let your body deteriorate, or you can be stressed and get in the gym and still make your body better and improve your health.
Which is, to me, picking your stress. It's the same thing as like, the comment, it's hard being fat, it's hard to be in shape, pick your hard.
Yeah.
I'm saying the same thing with stress. It's hard to be stressed by this, and it's hard to be stressed by this. So you pick your stresses. That means sometimes you have to exclude things from your life. But people, I can't exclude my job. Well, but sometimes I do think people do. I mean, obviously, it's situational. If you're a guy busting his ass working at Albertsons, and I have no disparaging, trust me, these are the people that handle my food. I do not want to disparage them whatsoever. But their job is going to have a different stress than the person working as a clerk or a tax
corporate executive.
Any of those people, so work stress. But work stress isn't universally the same either. So that's why I'm saying pick your stress. And if you can't pick it, choose how you react to it to the best of your ability.
Well, that's what I was saying. You can either be like, you can't always control everything, but you can control how you react. So you're going to be stressed no matter what. That's almost guaranteed. And you can either be stressed and let your body decline, or you can be stressed and still improve anyways.
Which is, by the way, one of the reasons why I think working out is one of the best teachers for how to manage stress, because what you're literally doing is putting yourself in a stressful situation and learning how to manage it.
100%.
I do see one thing on your list that I do want to address, because it's kind of a fun thing. Which workout activity gives the highest return on investment? And I don't have to think about this. This is scientifically 100. I don't think there's any research to dispute this. Resistance training has the greatest number of benefits versus the deficits that, because every activity has a pro and a con, right? There's breakdowns and all plates, but resistance training by far has the greatest win versus what you might as a deficit pull out of it ratio for 100%.
100%, because what people don't realize is when you're looking at resistance training, cardio, HIIT training, stretching, all independently, there's different workout like classes or workouts made for each of those independently. But when you weight train the right way, you're actually
incorporating a lot of those
component
modules.
of all those into one session, and that's why it's the ultimate superior, way of training.
People, I mean, the topic for a different day, but stretching is a natural occurrence in any resistance training program. I think
if you do it the right way.
And then we're talking about mobility training as an accessory to your resistance.
Yeah. Some people they're like, oh, I'm going to do mobility training. They do that for like a whole hour. Like no, like you incorporate that into your weight training, and you can get far greater results because then you get an assisted stretch most of the time.
Oh yeah, I do think that there's, and that's again topic for a different day. I do think that mobility training can have its specific area, especially once you get to the point where you are enjoying working out and you're incorporating into more days in your week. You might take a day and focus on mobility. There's nothing wrong. But it shouldn't be the only
It shouldn't replace
thing.
those 2 or 3 days.
Right.
Like if you only have 2 or 3 days to commit, and we're talking about maximum results and minimum time invested.
Then you want to build it into your program.
But if you have like 5 or 6 days a week, you can train for 5 hours a week. Sure, put one of those as mobility training.
100%.
All right. So so pretty much we talked about what yields the highest results, and then what yields the minimum results. So hope you like this conversation, this podcast. Learned a lot. Please like, subscribe, and if you have any ideas on topics that you want us to talk about, feel free to leave that in the comments.
Day number 1 completed. Thank you for watching.